Welcome to the Leading Games Journey podcast series. This is the first podcast that we're organizing, the purpose of which is to give voice to leading figures in the gaming sector. And today we have with us Ms. Tilla Segerstedt, CEO of Aurora Arts, which is a game studio out of Sweden. Hi, Tilla.
Hi, so nice to be here.
Great, it's great to have you, really, and really curious to hear your story and what you have to tell us. So I'll give you the floor. I don't know if you want to say something specific. If not, we'll move on into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So a bit background about me. I started out studying game development, and I graduated in like 2020, like 3D graphics, and then I worked some in the gaming industry, both in
Great.
Sweden and in Canada. And then I decided to start my own company. So that's kind of where my real journey began, I would say.
Yes, which I'm sure it was quite an adventure, which we'll hear in a little bit more. Okay, so to start from the beginning, at least, when and how did your interest in gaming begin? How did you get into this into this world?
So when I was really small, I remembered my brother used to play. I remember him playing. I think it was on like the PS1 or the PS2. He was playing GoldenEye, and he was playing these like shooter games, and I would just sit and watch because I thought it was so. It looked really cool. But it was just something that like within me it said like, no, I can't play that. I can only just watch. I think it was a bit scary for me when I was younger. I'm watching.
Okay.
And then I think I got into. I think my dad bought me like the Barbie horse games or like the dress up games, which I really, really liked. But then I remember as I got older, I would just feel like the quality of these games were nothing like the games my brother was playing. And I think when I grew up, it was a bit more divided. So it was very much like, oh, there were girl games and there were boy games. And there was some sort of like cultural societal thing that like girls should play girl games and boys should play boy games. So I didn't really understand that I could also play these games. But then I remember I started playing Ratchet and Clank with my brother, and I used to watch him for hours playing games. So I really fell in love with them. But I think it was when I was around 10, my dad had gotten my brother Assassin's Creed 1 on the computer.
Oh my God! Yes.
It was, yeah, I think it was.
So many classics like here today.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was like into 2007 or something.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it, so I was like, I'll test it. It was like about history and stuff like that. Yeah. And I love history. And then I started playing, and it was just it was such an experience. Like I couldn't believe these things that I really loved. I was so immersed in this world with all the history and the gameplay, and I think after that I like the fire and passion for games really I think came out of that. So yeah, I think that's where it started.
Great, no, great. Yeah. That game specifically, I also played it back in the day. And yes, it's true that it focused a lot on history and I think it was one of the first games that really gave the player a chance or an opportunity to explore history behind the settings and not just the story. It was great. Okay, nice. Cool. I perfectly I can recognize your path in a way. How did you go from that to then thinking about a future in gaming, or did you think about future in gaming back then, or was that something later?
Yeah, I don't think I understood that you could work with games. I just knew. I think I was. I don't know. Like I think I was 12 when I didn't know how to work in games. I didn't know how games were made. I didn't really know you could work in games, but I've always been like an artistic person. So I was like, I'll do concept art for games because I've heard that online or something. Because I've really gotten into digital art with like my first really bad like Wacom tablet. So I started being like on the internet and like uploading my art in DeviantArt, and then I like my eyes opened up for this thing that was called concept art. So you got to be the one drawing for games. So that's when I was like, I want to work in games. I don't really know how you make them, but I'll just draw and draw and draw my like weird like anime girl rules, and
So you
hopefully
started
I'll
with
get there.
drawing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you started drawing when you were a kid, I guess, by yourself, just
yeah.
some drawings
That's how I
of
got into the
cartoons.
industry. Yeah, yeah. Like I
Okay, and how
like
did that
manga
evolve?
and stuff like
So
that.
you started drawing on your own, right? And then, but how did that
Yes.
go from just a little hobby
I think
to something more
I drew a
serious?
lot of fan art, and then I wanted to, of course,
Okay,
like be better and be cool online to draw really cool stuff. So I would draw um, all the time, and I guess
interesting.
eventually I started to understand like I can't just draw characters if I want to work with games. I have to learn how to draw backgrounds and light and props.
Okay,
But I was really interested in characters. So
and
my background is really like my
mhm,
foundation as a I don't know, as like a 3D artist is 2D. So it's very close to my heart with like design and stuff like that. So I already had that when I came into the school, like the University of Skövde. So
okay,
I just like
and
developed my skills from there.
you learned all of that by yourself up to a point,
Yes.
or
Yeah,
yes?
yeah.
Okay, no, no, that's great. That's
I
great.
did go to
So self-taught in a way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I did go to like the I don't know, it's gymnasium in Swedish, but I guess it's like high school.
At high school,
But
yes, I
they
think.
didn't
Yeah.
really know that kind of art. They were more into like I don't know, abstract art. I wanted
Oh,
to learn
okay.
more of like a classical type of art. I
Drawing
wanted to learn like
faces,
the
drawing. Yeah.
yeah, like art fundamentals. That was really important to me, and
Hmm.
I didn't feel like anyone um, could teach me that. So I would say yeah, I am self-taught in that way, and
Great.
always thinking about how can I improve, and when there was something I was really bad at, that was for me a sign that I should do that even more to like
Right.
evolve.
And so, okay, so you had that first period where you learned by yourself. Then you got into college, right? And
Yeah,
you started a course on gaming design,
3D,
right? On 3D
3D
design. Sorry,
graphics. Yes.
3D graphics. Okay.
But in that it's like it's a 3 year
Mhm.
education where
Okay.
you get to focus on 3D art and learn because I didn't know 3D art when I started.
Right.
So I learned 3D art, and then you are doing these courses where you make games with all of the disciplines. So in that school, you have programmers, designers, 2D artists, music people, sound people. So you have all of the disciplines to make an entire indie team. Um, so through those projects, and we had one project that we made for like a last like graduation project called Mood, which was like a
Hmm.
horror type of like first
Oh.
person PC game that we
Okay.
released on itch, and then we had like
Oh,
we had YouTubers who played it and they really enjoyed it, and that
really
was such an
interesting.
amazing it was such an amazing feeling to feel that um, we had made something creatively and people were enjoying it and watching them
And you did that in
experience
college, right?
it.
As a
Yeah.
as a project for a course. Or
Yes,
okay,
I think it was like
interesting.
3 months, and I just remember when we were sitting there, I was just like I did like 200 props or something for that project.
Jesus. Okay,
I was working like day and night, but we really we put our heart and soul into that project, and it was really fun.
very interesting. And so, um, when if what type of obstacles did you find when you first entered this gaming industry, even starting at the college level? I mean, was that uh, typically it's well known that this type of industry is more male focused
Yeah.
um, for many reasons. Um, how what difficulties, obstacles did you have to overcome?
Yeah, so I had two internships doing my so I went and got those internships myself. They weren't through the school, but I understood I
Okay,
had friends who were like older students, and they had basically told me like the way to get into the industry is like through the internships and through the connections you get there. That's like your best chance, and also getting to learn and like because the time in school it's very much you have your own responsibility over your work. So there was definitely enough time for me to both be able to do schoolwork and have the internships. But during those internships, um, I definitely felt the kind of, World of Warcraft guys in basements, like eating their
Right.
lunches in front of their computers, and it it wasn't that they weren't nice to me or anything, but it
Hmm.
definitely, if there is like the culture is definitely set, and I felt like I definitely was treated differently. But
Based on your
so
gender.
it's yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. I think some people have if they see you as a woman, they might see you more of like a little, they see you more as a girl than just like a
Hmm.
developer, and that definitely could influence
First a
how
woman,
they
then a
view.
developer, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So it's like you're a woman developer, you're not just a developer. And they
Yeah.
can also be like, you can be positively um, treated because you are different, but it can also be like in a negative way where I feel like sometimes they didn't take me as seriously as someone else.
Right.
I wasn't one of the guys in the same way as the other
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
were.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, so you did your course, and then you started working right away, or how did that?
No, actually, I felt like after my experience on those places, I just felt like maybe this isn't for me. Maybe game development isn't where I belong. Maybe I
Uh-huh.
should do something else. Maybe I should become a doctor instead. So I'll do something else. I studied like nature science for a year, and then
Hmm.
of course, I realized like, oh wait, I hate studying. That's that's not what I want to do.
Interesting.
That's not what I'm good at.
Right.
So I
But
went back to like, this is what I'm good at.
but you
And I
you
also
you
felt
you
like
decided.
yeah,
Sorry,
you can say.
please.
I felt like I needed to prove that I wasn't stupid, because I've always
Oh,
felt like, because I'm an artist, I always felt like that was less valued than being like book smart. So I felt like I had to prove to myself
yeah.
that I was smart enough to
But you had
study
to
those
study
things.
for to complete your course, right?
Yeah, of course I had to study, but I guess it's because art was always art, and those things were easy for me,
It came
and
easy for you. Okay, I see.
yeah, exactly,
I
and
see.
like math and stuff like that, I've always despised it. So I felt like I had to prove that I was smart and good enough, and I
Yeah,
thought that
it's.
if I had that kind of education, I would be considered smart.
Hmm.
But then I
Well,
understood like, oh wait, I don't want to
I guess,
study. I hate
and
it.
each person has its own specialities, right? So
Yeah.
it's really, it comes down to our preferences, I guess. Okay, interesting. But so you changed, you decided to to go into a different course, uh, because okay. So what you just said, you felt you didn't not that you were stupid, but that you didn't have
Yeah, like I didn't belong, and the
exactly
climate didn't I thought that video game development would be something different. And when I came
right.
into the industry, I felt like this isn't what I
Uh-huh.
thought it
Okay,
would be.
so it was a bit of a shock for you in a way
Yes, I think
when you
so.
first did your internships. Okay, I see,
Yeah.
I see, I see. Okay,
Um,
and then okay, so you went back to gaming,
yes.
and
So then
how
I it was
yeah.
like during Corona, I
Mm-hmm.
remember. So everything was really, everything was at home, and it was kind of chaotic for me, and I felt like I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And then I was like, I'll try to I want to try again. I'll get back to gaming. I'll get back into it. And of course, then it was so hard. Like I applied for, I don't know how many jobs, maybe 70 more jobs, and no one wanted me. Um, but the thing is that I talked to my guy friends, and when I was applying for jobs, I was only applying for jobs that I was eligible for. So, like junior
What do you mean by
positions
that?
and stuff
Sorry.
like that,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
like very more junior positions. But I wanted to be an
Right.
art director. I said I'd go for myself. I want to be an art director within 5 years. That was like my goal. So,
Good. Uh-huh.
and then I felt like I took a page out of my guy friend's book, who said, why just apply for everything, apply for everything, even the things that you aren't eligible for. Like, let them decide if you are good enough or not.
Right.
Like, you're not missing anything by applying for everything.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare to do that before, because I wasn't that's not what I was taught. I was taught that I should be like more I don't know, humble and not try to be something I wasn't. So, but then I was like, I don't know, I don't have anything to lose. So I started applying for those like art director jobs as well, and I don't know, hyping myself up. And then eventually I got my first job as an art director at like this gamification company, because they liked my portfolio and they wanted probably someone who was younger and had a different perspective.
Hmm.
So, and I wouldn't have gotten that job if I
New
didn't dare
ideas.
to apply for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after I had my first job, of course, I started getting headhunted and people wanted me now. So before
Ah,
when I didn't
great.
have a job, no one wanted me. And then when I had a job, I was suddenly very interesting for like all of the other companies.
Interesting. And so
Yeah.
throughout that part of your trip, of your journey, again, did you were you confronted with any difficulties or obstacles in your path because you're a woman, or
Yeah.
no?
I would say that they treated me differently in the way that they saw me as a woman and then a developer after.
Okay.
Um, and I also had some experiences when I talked to, it was under a different company, and I talked to them about like their design, and I talked to them that they wanted to make, it was another game, and they wanted to make the game very open for everyone, that it was going to be attractive for
Mm-hmm.
both males and females. And I told them that the design that they have right now, it's very male targeted, and shouldn't they think
Interesting.
about maybe being more inclusive towards women and girls as well, because this is probably not going to attract, this is attracting one audience. And
Exactly.
they told me, don't worry, we're going to hire a man for the design of this website, but don't worry, he's very feminine, so
Okay.
you don't need to worry
Okay.
about it. And it was so weird.
That's a bit weird, yeah. And indeed, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's a trend that you see now in more modern games in the last few years. That indeed, I mean, you can choose, for example, in JRPGs and RPGs, you can choose. You don't choose man, women, or female, male. You can choose non-binary, for example. So
Yeah.
there's more choice. But okay, interesting. Yes. So throughout this whole path, since your internships, the fact that you're a woman, sometimes could be
You're treated as your
not
gender, not as
discrimination, yeah,
your
but
role.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
And it can be both like being a woman in the gaming industry can be both like positive and negative, because you stand
Okay,
out, because there's not that many women
interesting.
in many places, and especially not in leadership positions.
Hmm.
So it's of course that employers are interested, because you could come with a different perspective, but it's also you get treated differently. And I just wish that in the future, when it's much more equal, it will just be developers. We won't need to
Exactly.
be defined by you're a female developer or you're a male developer, especially just like it's the same thing with entrepreneurs, that if you're an entrepreneur today and you're a woman, you're a
Hmm.
female entrepreneur. You're not just, you never hear people say, oh, that's a male entrepreneur.
Right,
So
right, right.
it's that kind of thing. But I think one of the things that I realized, because I was always wanting to question and like um, going deep and like wanting to like I wanted answers from these companies, and I wanted to understand what they were doing. But usually they would just tell me like, art is your only responsibility. Don't dip your fingers where it doesn't belong. We don't want you to talk about like question these things that we are doing as a company. And I understand that, but I still felt like I wanted to do something more than just art. I wanted to have
Hmm.
decisions over how the company was run and what we were doing, like what kinds of games were we making. Um, so I guess that's where it kind of like the idea started of maybe having my own company.
Right. And when did that start? That first spark, first.
I think it's like when I was a student and things like that. I had done a bunch of like commissions, and I did Disney portraits of people
Oh.
online. Um, and I started to kind of make good money out of it,
Hmm.
because I started to kind of feel how it felt like to be my own boss, because I was talking to the customer and I was getting money, and I started understanding that I could like raise my prices because people really wanted to pay what I was giving. So I guess that was my first taste of it, and then I got to do some like illustrations for Google and some other companies as well through that. So it was really cool, and it started to feel like I could really do something. Like that was my first taste of real entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah.
And then I guess that kind of idea started, and I had this idea about a game, and it just started to like bubble in my mind.
That's I guess that's the hardest part, right? To have a
Yeah,
good idea that you want to work on. Well, that's great.
exactly.
That's great. Okay. And now that you've reached, let's say the pinnacle, if you want to call it that, the pinnacle in terms of hierarchy in your industry, right? CEO.
Hmm.
Um, what what suggestions would you have for a young girl, a girl that's still in high school, thinking about maybe I'd like to try gaming also, like you did before. I'd like to try design. I'll try this and that. What suggestions would you give yourself, for example, when you were 15, 16, thinking back?
I would probably tell them to keep doing what you're doing, and also to understand that there are so many possibilities to do everything. You just have to try, and you grow when you are in your like when you get a little bit uncomfortable, because starting a company is uncomfortable because you're doing all of these things that are
Uh-huh.
super scary and totally new, because you have your little bubble of comfort, like this is what I know. And I think that's about all skills. When you are trying something that you are unsure of, or it's like, oh, I'm bad at doing this sort of thing. And then when you try to grow as a person, you have to go outside of your small comfort zone.
Of
And
course.
like outside
Yeah.
of your comfort zone, that's where you grow. So don't be afraid to try things that make you feel a little bit insecure, a little bit like uncomfortable. Um, and also, you shouldn't be like the judge of your own work yourself. I can have a little metaphor. I remember when I was young, I used to go to like museums and I would look at the art and I would say, "Oh my God, these artworks look so bad." Like some of them, the weird impressionists, they had taken like chalk and they made, I don't know, something ugly. I thought art is subjective. And then I was like, why isn't my art up there? Why aren't they, like, I'm so much better, I thought
Interesting.
when I was younger. So I was like, I could totally have my art at like a museum. Like, why do they get to show off their art and not me? Uh, and then when I realized that those people who had exhibited the art, they had done something that I had not. They had submitted their art. They had
Uh-huh.
done art and they had showed it to these people and they said, this is my art, please hang it up in
Validated.
a museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got validated, because so many, I think, are sitting at home and they're too afraid to show the world what they're doing, and then it's never going to be validated, or it will never be in the museum if you keep it to
Yeah.
yourself. So let someone else be the judge, and you have to take action to make it happen. um
Yeah.
and
Self
if you want to
confidence, I
be,
guess,
yeah,
is
exactly.
a
So
big step.
definitely, like, take a book out of, I know I have a lot of guy friends, and they are very different to what I grew up with. They are very confident, and when they are applying for jobs, they're applying for jobs that they are nowhere near eligible for, but they get those jobs because they dare to apply. And I know a lot of female friends I have, they're very insecure, and I think it's like a societal thing that they are taught to be
Hmm.
humble and not to like blow their self-confidence up. But you need to do that to get ahead.
Get
um
ahead. Absolutely.
like, you have to be shown to the world, show your stuff and
Yeah.
your work, I would say.
To put yourself out there and feel comfortable with being evaluated and while you work.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah, exactly, because you miss the shots
to get
that
ahead.
you don't take. If you
Exactly.
if you always sit at home and you have amazing work, if it's whatever, but you never take that step that isn't comfortable to show your work, and that's when you open up yourself to feedback and to negative feedback as well. But you have to be brave, I would say.
Great. Thank you so much, Tilla. That was a lot of interesting points. We're about to reach the half an hour mark.
It's really nice. Thank you for
it was
having
good.
me.
Thank you so much.